it takes time. And, like getting the right staff on board, getting the right practitioners, um, recognizing that we're a brand new company in a space that doesn't know us. So just being patient that it will happen. If you really believe in what you're doing and have a passionate person that you're working with on
Mhm.
board like that, we just had to stay on that patient path and continue on.
In the world of business, many people say faster is better. More clients means more profit, and growth is good. While this advice works for some, it's a notion that Eric Vermander and his wife Carolyn King are constantly pushing against. Owners of Vitae Health Sport in North Vancouver, Eric and Carolyn are a husband and wife duo running their clinic for the long haul. They've taken a slower yet intentional approach with their growth, allowing them to create a collaborative staff culture and a clinic experience that clients are organically attracted to. In this episode, we talk about what practicing patience looks like in business and the hard work that goes into bringing your vision to life. And we also talk about their incredible fish tank. Welcome to Radio Front Desk, a show that surfaces what real people and real clinics are doing to open, run, and grow successful health and wellness businesses. I'm your host, Denzel Ford, editor-in-chief of Front Desk Magazine by Jane Knapp. Here, we have powerful conversations with health and wellness professionals on the business side of clinic life. We hear their stories and discover what works and how to do it. And we also talk about what doesn't work. If you want to check out more stories like this, head to frontdesk.jane.app. So I have something I've never told you that I'm going to tell you right now. So you're talking about a magazine inspiring your design, which I think is so fascinating because when I pitched Front Desk Magazine to the leadership of Jane, I used your clinic as the cover shot because it's so beautiful and clean, and it has like that concrete element and the chairs and everything. So yeah, you guys helped me in a way you didn't even know.
We did. It was
Yeah.
an honor. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
And, for some of the colors and the design, I have to turn to Caroline because she certainly curated and picked and set things up. And it was really, she picked up on things that I didn't. And
It's a team effort. Team
we
effort.
worked together.
Who's responsible for the fish tank?
There was a
Good
man that
question.
owned a little fish shop right behind us, like a aquarium store.
Oh.
And he came to us and he said, "Hey, I'm trying to grow my business. Can I put a tank in? I'll take care of it for you."
Oh, wow.
And we're like, "That's awesome. Let's do it. Put it in." And then he moved. And so now Eric's in charge of the fish
I'm
tank.
in charge of everything. Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. And that's part of that atmosphere or feeling of, oh, we got something living over here and functioning. So it's a nice addition.
Yeah.
I'm glad we have it.
Yeah, I love it. Personally, even when I don't have my kids, I love it because it's just, you're right, it's like a nice little something extra. But obviously the kids also, it gives them something to do while they're waiting a little bit, right?
Oh yeah, exactly.
Something
If
to look
they're
at.
impatient, we're like, for the little kids, oh, how many fish can you find? Oh, did you see the blue one? There's some shrimp crawling around. And so
Yeah.
it gives them a little something, which helps maybe set the tone for their parents or their caregivers visit. They can relax.
Yeah. So let's get into the meat of it. How did you go from being a chiropractor and then deciding that you wanted to open your own business? Can you talk about that decision a little bit?
Yeah, I was an independent contractor working in an established clinic for 10 years. And I'd always had the vision and idea of owning, my own place or our own place, and having it set up exactly how I would like it, and to have the freedom to do different things. And so it was a goal early on.
For sure.
And so once we, you know,
This was something during school that was,
yes,
this wasn't once you're in the workforce, I want to do this for
correct.
myself. You knew when you were in school, I'm going to do this.
Yeah, there was an exercise in a class, maybe second year, where they said, write down piece of paper, what do you, how do you see your practice in the future? And I pretty much done what I wrote down 20 years ago. Um, so that's kind of, it's an interesting exercise, and that can always change too, right? As
Yeah.
we gain experience in different types of clinics, and put it together, and here we are.
Yeah. So where were you when you like took the first effort to actually do it? What were you like? How did that moment
I'm
go?
trying to remember. I
Well,
think it would have been 7 years ago, right?
yeah, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, we started, we had the conversation because I knew that I couldn't do it by myself. So I had to, we had to talk about the level of commitment and the cost, and, how things might, grow over time. And so we started with probably a cup of coffee, and,
Mhm.
and went from there.
It was right in the beginning. It was more fun. Like, ooh, let's do this. That'd be fun. What is this going to look like?
Yeah,
And
it
then
was
it became,
exciting. Yeah, it was an exciting time.
yeah. And then it was more, oh, let's look at real estate. Oh, this is really hard. Oh, let's figure out someone. Oh, we have a friend who could design this space. She'll do it for us. Then we met with her, and she was like, this is much bigger than what I can do. This is not
Mhm.
in my wheelhouse. Like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, we have
There's
to
a
find someone who can design this. Like, it really,
there's a lot of detail
yeah,
that comes out from that first idea.
yeah,
Yeah.
And so, it was an exciting, journey to unlock the door first day, but it was a lot of work
Yeah.
because we were designing from a, a raw space, an empty space.
mhm.
Interesting. And so you did end up hiring another designer. Is that right?
We did. We ended up hiring a friend's brother.
Yeah, he's an architect.
Yeah. Uh, was he at the time? Like, I think he was in design
Industrial.
school.
Well, yes, industrial. Well, the architectural design. Maybe
Yeah.
not a full licensed architect, but
Exactly. the
and
wrong
he
word.
did do some other courses in Scandinavia, wood, and he was, but he had the skills to do the drawings
Definitely.
and to get,
Very talented.
yeah, to work with us to figure out how to maximize the space.
Yeah. So what's going on? Okay, there's a lot in my head. So you've signed a lease, you've opened the door with the key, you have this designer, someone has to do the work. And then you have to also plan all the stuff for like once it's ready to go. All of this is happening at the same time, I'm imagining.
More of a puzzle, right? Like, it
Mhm.
was like, okay, we kind of had some big check boxes that we knew were going to come, but we couldn't do those until we got through certain things.
Yeah.
Right.
So really,
Right.
it was okay, find a space. We actually had found a different space that we really liked, and it just ended up the one over in more East Van, and that
Mhm.
it just didn't make sense. And
It felt forced, and
right,
so we.
So just to let people know, East Van is we're in North Van, and that East Van is like across on a different part of the city. I'll just say that, and that's enough.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
So yeah.
So we had, once we had our design, then we met with three different builders, general contractors, um, and picked the best fit for us. And it was someone whose office was in North Vancouver, and, I had already done work in the same building,
Mhm.
and there were some interesting elements of the building that they had experience with. So it was very helpful. And so, yeah, and so we were able to, they held our hand, in terms of the build out process, and away, and gave us options, kept us up to date. And, uh, there's a lot of cost. And so having the banking side of things organized as well. And we met with three different banks with our business plan and put it all together. And we were just, picking the best fit for us to help us reach our goals. And,
Right.
um, but it was a process, and it took time. It took longer than we thought, but
Yeah.
I think most projects do.
Right. And then there's permitting, right? So then all of a sudden, we're like, okay, we're good. Oh no, we can't. We need a business license, right? So it took a lot longer than I expected to get that piece of paper. Then we could say, now, here we go.
Oh,
But
okay.
I do remember when we finally said, here we go, we're open. Let it happen. Okay. We're waiting. And
Yeah.
it's something that I've really seen with new practitioners who have just graduated and they're like super keen and we're ready to start. And it just reminds me of when we opened. And it's like, I know, but you've got to be patient. It's gonna
Yeah.
take a little while to grow, right? And
Right.
And on that, new practitioners need to be engaged in the community
Right.
and to have their, those interactions and to grow their clientele by being out there.
Right.
And it's not just sit, twiddle your thumbs and wait.
Right. Right.
So that's important. And when there's a number of businesses, that we have been in touch with, and the referral from patient to patient and from other practitioners, that's just grown from there.
Right. I just want to back up a bit to this part where you're getting the business prepared to go, getting it ready to be opened. How we like really practical tips and tricks here. So how did you keep track of all of that from a project management perspective? Did you have a Google document? Did you like
a lot of them, actually.
Yeah, okay.
A lot of checklists.
Yeah.
There would be the business, the actual healthcare business side of things. So just getting set up for, are we going to direct bill? Are we going to be involved with ICDC? The different components that a practitioner could be involved in.
Right.
Yeah, those front desk systems.
Right. Which we were very lucky. Eric had a really great relationship with with the people at his other clinic. So because he was a practitioner at 2 different clinics prior to us opening ours. So those people that he worked with were so kind, said, I'm going to come over and just hang out with you. And sat with me, and I just had a notebook. And she's like, have you thought about this? Nope. Okay, look into that.
Yeah.
About this? Nope.
Yeah. Drawing on others' experience. Yeah, that
Right.
was helpful. And
are we going to accept credit cards? Oh, are we going to accept cash? I mean, so many minutia things, but
Right.
had to be, how are we going to play music in the clinic? I mean,
Right.
there's just so many that kind of spiral when you start thinking about.
yeah.
How did you choose the music? What music did you choose and how did you choose it?
So we use Spotify and we just have playlists in the front desk. Whoever's working that day put something on, and I always thought it would be a little more curated, but it turns out we just need something in the background to fill the
Right.
space. So
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And no commercials. So
Yeah,
Spotify
yeah.
Premium.
Yeah.
right.
So,
Right.
but and I think that it's uncommon to have a song come on that's not fitting.
Right.
We kind of have,
Right.
but sometimes, it's a walkover, skip that song, or,
Yeah.
that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. That's funny. So let's dive into the front desk side of it a little bit more. Like what are some of the biggest things that you had to handle to get that all set up? And like what's your biggest learning from that?
Yeah, it's such a intense learning curve for someone like myself who hadn't been in any type of a clinic. It was just stories from him coming home, talking about how things went, but I kept him that all at arm's length for Vitae. So for me, it was like I was in school. It was just starting from the beginning. It was what is direct billing? What is I keep talking about that, but like, what are all of the people that we want to connect with? How much do we want to offer, right? And we wanted to offer everything. So it was like, okay, we got to figure it all
You
out.
mean different treatment types?
Treatment
Or
types.
taking
I think just as far as
billing.
billing.
I
like,
see.
if when a patient comes to us, I don't want to say we don't do that. No matter what it was, I wanted to be able to have a solution, right? And that has taken me a few years to come to a point where if somebody calls in and says, oh, I've had this situation, not necessarily with billing, but just physically, and to be able to say, I think you need to go to this other person outside of the clinic, right? Like that was, for me, I just wanted to help and just take care of a patient start to finish.
Right.
And sometimes that means they should go somewhere else, right? But for me, going back to that learning part, it was really about the billing, but then also about what we're offering, right? And um, just how to be really clear. I think that is really important when people are looking for a clinic and for a solution for their health, to be very clear about who our practitioners are, what they offer.
Really setting the expectations,
Right.
so then we can, meet them and exceed them. That, I think, has been important. And that starts at the front desk.
Mhm.
It's that phone call, and I don't know who to see. This is going on. And so a little triage to have a good match.
Right.
And so then we can help them reach those healthcare goals that they have. And when I see patients, I ask them what their goals are. And I said, and those are my goals. We have, so we're working together.
Right.
Mhm.
But anyhow, yeah, it certainly was a learning process. I could draw on some of my past business experience with, budgeting and hiring and some of these things. But it's been an interesting, blend of learning um, and here we are today, growing every year and having fun.
Love it.
Still married.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Still happily married.
We at Jane, we often say, "Are we still having fun?" That's one of our questions to make sure that we're on the right track. So I love that. What do you value in a front desk person? How do you hire for that role? Because I know you do have people at your desk. So how do you make that decision? And what are you looking for in someone?
You know, that's something I've learned as well, because I didn't have any of that background prior to this role. Eric had for years, working in retail, working as a manager. He had done a lot of that interface and interviewing. I hadn't. So we'd meet someone and be like, oh, great. He's like, okay. I'm like, oh, but all these different things that I really appreciated. Well, people, not that you didn't appreciate, but you're like, that's actually not beneficial for this role. I mean, right? He needs to understand how to work around a computer, or she does. So um, we've been really blessed with all of our staff, honestly. Like, they've all brought such different components. We've had people that were experienced at front desk roles and actually taught me things. And well, this time we've done it at the other clinic. Have you tried this? Oh, perfect. This is so streamlined. Thank you. I'm embarrassed somebody did it differently for the last 2 years. Kind of
All
thing.
part of learning. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then other ones who have come and said, I'm a kinesiology student and I want experience in these environments. And that both have been equally rewarding, but for sure, being able to nurture somebody, I mean, it's almost, I get emotional talking about it, because it's been such a neat experience to see them really passionate about clinic world, right? And I mean, it ends up about Vitae, and there's been such intense trust, which is so important, right?
Yeah.
So trust, motivation,
Yeah. And, their personality, their,
right.
I think that's an obvious though, but, having people that are well-spoken and outgoing and that, we're, drawn to those and those who presented themselves well from the beginning. We had some people who maybe were not dressed well. There's a couple interviews where it seemed like they just didn't present themselves. And it's like, well, they will be the face of the clinic when, clients come in. Maybe they have good experience, but they had a lot of negative comments or negative tone. And so it's been interesting to meet a lot of different people. And we have had we have awesome front desk staff that have been around for some time, that they're there for a long time. And that's important. You don't want to have continual turnover.
No, yeah.
Which then comes into part of the culture, happy fun, place to work. So that's important, I think, to have both front desk staff, but also practitioners, feel appreciated and respected, and to have them be there growing, growing their business, growing our business. That's important. And we kind of joke that we've had more staff gatherings than staff meetings. But, again, I think that's important to have, those kind of that experience, those almost that relationship that is not just clock in, clock out, to grow,
Yeah.
to grow together. So
Yeah.
Well, and the nature of our clinic, and I think I'm observing a lot of clinics, it's not Monday to Friday, 8 to 4, 9 to 5. People come in, their schedules stagger.
Mm.
We have some staff who've never, or practitioners who've never met other practitioners because they just
Right.
never work on the same day. So maybe when we opened, I had this expectation like, okay, we're gonna do all this fun stuff. We'll maybe do a trivia night because everyone will go there after work. Well, some people are never there on that day. So it's just been an interesting
it's true.
component of the culture, trying to kind of be cohesive.
Yeah. And trivia is a lot of fun. So
that's what goes into one of these gatherings is trivia.
Christmas trivia at Christmas time. We've had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So that's an important part of,
Yeah.
Growing and picking the right people and maintaining and nurturing, the environment.
Yeah. Right.
So that's been important to us.
Yeah, I love it. I love when you're talking about hiring because you're talking about finding signals for what's underneath. And it's something that to me is a skill that needs to be learned as someone making a decision on who to hire. And you're talking about like what people wear and having that be important. It seems like a really obvious one, but it's also easily overlooked unless it's really bad. And then when I'm interviewing, I am always looking for negative undertone, and you'd be surprised at how often people don't realize that that's what they're coming off as. And I've had a variety of these things happen. In my case, sometimes I actually will give the person the feedback and say, like, you're really lovely, and I actually think you're really skilled at this job. But like you're speaking poorly of your current or previous situation, and I'm like, that's something I can't bring into my world. I don't have a capacity to take that. So but I love that you brought that up because it's one of my non-negotiables, and to the point where when we're just starting an interview and like the banter at the beginning, a lot of ours are online, and like you get a banter and wait for everyone else to join or whatever. I'm grading that. And it's so interesting how often people will actually say something negative in that time when they think that they're not on. And I'm like, oh, no, we're on.
I think that's the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And when it's in that casual, like you said, that period of banter, like that's a great kind of opportunity because then there's some of their true characteristics might emerge.
Yeah.
And so we've seen that in interviews. At one point we actually hired somebody with no healthcare front desk experience over someone who had experience, but too much negative dialogue and commentary.
Yeah.
And we were like,
yeah.
no, we can do this. This personality
I love that
is.
you're talking about that example because it seems so counterintuitive. Like we're gonna choose someone who doesn't have the experience.
Yeah.
It seems so counterintuitive, but the cost of having someone that doesn't fit your culture, that doesn't bring light to your life is really heavy.
Yeah.
It is.
Because then if it doesn't work out, you have to go through that next process of
showing them for sure. For sure. Right.
Yeah.
It's like kind of projecting a little bit. I fully appreciate that front desk role is not generally a long-term role for people. It tends to be pretty transitory. But I'm okay if I know I'm not going to have, like you're saying, I'm not going to have to be like, oh, okay, let's have a conversation about this. No,
Yeah.
you can be here for a year. Great. So,
Mhm.
So let's dive into growth. Once you had your clinic, it's established, people are coming in the door. What was your approach to growth, and what's that story?
Yeah, we've had excellent growth every year over year, from the beginning, which is we really appreciate each month and each year. Um, Part of that culture and with our practitioners, we have 16 practitioners, and we didn't start with 16. And we made a conscious, decision to grow slowly, which sounds funny because growing fast, maybe financially, maybe that sounds better. But when it comes to the practitioner experience, we would bring on a massage therapist, one at a time. And once they were full, then we could bring on the next. And that way they weren't, fighting over new clients. And then once the second was full and with a wait list, we'd bring on the next and we would talk to them. We're going to be adding another person. Do you want to change your schedule? Is there anything? So we have these kind of touchstone moments and have this organic, steady, but this growth with a good foundation.
Mhm.
And so now we have 5 massage therapists. We have 3 physiotherapists. And so that was important in terms of growth, was to be patient. And initially, my patient base that had followed me from my previous clinic, that was sustaining the clinic and covering a lot of those expenses. And so now, as you add each practitioner, the rent that they pay helps to spread you know, the burden out, I guess, and we can all share on the expense side of things. So that's kind of how we've grown.
And how long did it take to get from kind of your business paying most of the expenses to a place where the other ones are helping, contributing, all of that?
Um, well, probably once we crossed over like about the 10 practitioner mark, then that helps helps quite a bit. So then it definitely starts to shift away from all of the weight on my shoulders to um, everyone contributing. Um, and interestingly, so we opened June 1st, 2019. 9 months later, we closed March 2020, and then we reopened June 1st, 2020. So
Interesting.
from then, there was, that growth from the beginning. There was challenges, and even for patients, their own comfort level to come into a clinical setting.
Mhm.
So there was, guidelines that we were following to make sure that our practitioners, our front desk, and our patients were comfortable. But there was like hesitation in 2020,
Mhm.
so our growth kind of profile is probably going to be different than someone opening up in 2024 or in the future.
Right.
So there were, challenges for sure in 2020, 2021.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
just a
important.
few.
That's important.
Yeah.
The challenges that shall not be mentioned. So,
I thought, well, exactly. It's behind us now, and,
yeah.
we're looking forward.
Yeah.
But, we learned, a lot during that time, and um, we survived. And, in part, and as I mentioned before, choosing your partners in business being our bank. Um, that was supportive and bridging all the way
You mentioned
through.
that twice now. Could you talk about that? How you chose your bank? Like, is that like something like
Yeah, there's the numbers
Right.
side
like
of
how do you choose the bank? How do you how do you make that choice?
yeah, that's a great question. There's the number side of things where you can look at the bank loan and the interest rates and those numbers.
Mhm.
Uh, but we chose a bank with a history of working with small business, local small business.
Mhm.
Can I say the bank's name?
If you want to say the bank's name.
Sure. We bank with Van City.
Oh, Van City. Okay. Very cool.
So
Little local Vancouver action.
yeah, they're like
Exactly.
they're a credit union,
Mhm.
and I I can't speak to other businesses in 2020 and how the bigger, banks or others supported them. I'm sure there was, support, but we found a great match for us.
Very cool.
And
You're feeling emotional about it?
well, no, I mean, that was it's a pretty important part of, surviving
Yeah, totally.
the pandemic and how that impacted our revenue.
Yeah.
And when we're working together, we didn't have other revenue,
Right.
other income.
Right.
So no, Van City was awesome,
Right.
and
Yeah.
we appreciate them.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. That's amazing. It's something that seems so behind the scenes, but it's especially when you're just getting started, it's critical to have
The
the right
reality of
fit.
it.
Yeah. Did they like offer you support? Is that like how it worked, or is it more just like they knew what they're doing, they knew how much to like deal with you and all of this? Do you have a representative? I don't even know.
Yeah, we have one person we talk to, so he knows us really well. And in spring of 2020, he simply said, "We'll figure it out.
Don't
Interesting.
worry.
Don't worry.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Just don't lose sleep."
Yeah.
Right. Wow, the
And so,
security that would give in a moment of not just opening a business, that's insecure enough, but then in the middle of all of the pandemic is just like that's a lot to think about.
and we had learned to trust him,
Mhm.
and he gave great advice. And so then once that happened,
Let me also add, though, that
okay,
you had done so much work to present really, maybe we should have said this earlier, when we said, let's do this. Eric spent hours putting together business plans and mission statement and
Right.
projection,
Right.
and saying, okay, I mean, in 2018, 2017, when he started this, we were trying to, okay, what does our 6, 7, 8 year goal look like? Right. And that was not something we normally do as a family, like as a couple. That wasn't,
Right.
I know a lot of people do, not really our MO, but that was what needed to happen. Right. And so when we settled in on our bank, he had all of this very organized work to say, this is what we're thinking. And I think that helped with that banker to trust the
Interesting.
direction that we
Right.
were going to go.
yeah.
So,
And healthcare certainly is a fairly stable industry.
Yeah.
And even through economic roller coasters, for healthcare does well, during recessions.
mhm.
It's stable. So I think there was a lot of confidence that they had invested in us, and that it would all work out. But it was nice to hear them just tell us, "Don't worry,
Right.
we got you.
Right.
We will figure it out on the other side."
Right.
And it's worked out really well. It's been a great relationship.
What was that first mission statement like?
Oh, we have to dust that off. I think that we wanted to be um, a part of a community providing, excellent care to help people reach their healthcare goals, and to do that in a kind of a conscious, sustainable um, way where we would be, I use that word community, but where we're located, we were the first integrated clinic of this size in the area. So it was strategic on our location.
Yeah.
So it was an underserved area. So part of our mission was to provide excellent care to the community. and we live, 6 minutes away. We're in the community. And so I think, that was part of it, but the exact mission statement word for word, I don't remember.
Yeah,
Very
no,
close,
that's
though.
fine. That's
That's pretty
fine.
close.
Yeah,
It was.
love it.
Yeah.
I want to call out your choice and location a little bit because as one of your patients, definitely that was a critical decision that you made because it was underserved in the sense of there's thousands of people that live around there, but there's not a ton of healthcare options. So I think it seems to have been an excellent choice in that way. And I don't know, did you feel like you were taking a chance a little bit by choosing that? Because you were, especially in that center, you're the only one, or maybe even still. But then
Yes.
around too, like there's industrial things around there. There's
Yeah.
other businesses, but not healthcare businesses. And then there's a lot of homes and people living in different places. So
Yes. It's, I guess it's a real estate expression of location, location, location. So we really did talk about um, the balancing. And so we had, I had worked at a clinic that was in a residential area. And during the day, it was pretty quiet because everyone's gone before 2020,
right,
everyone's gone
right,
from the residential area during the
Mhm.
day.
right.
Mhm.
So that posed its own problems. We wanted to have a balance of where a place where people came to work. So lots of businesses, large industrial stuff, and um, other professional uh, services. So that's all around us, as well as residential nearby. And knowing that where we chose the clinic location is a development hub for the district of North Vancouver.
Right,
So those changes are still happening and there will be more and more growth.
right.
So zeroing in on an underserved area that had a balance that was also had growth planned. Those were all really important. Um, and we did choose a street level location. And as we were looking at commercial spaces, um, a certain large coffee chain had, assigned their lease. And we said, well, if they're going to be beside us, then
Mhm.
we don't really need to think too much more about analyzing the demographics and all of these things, because there will be, it's going to be a good location if a large company made that choice.
I love that this is how you made this choice. How did you get this information about the fact that it was an area for development? I mean, I know you live in the area and I live in the area, so you kind of it's all just in the ether, but did you actually look at what the plans were and how did you know about this
Yeah,
But
coffee
what,
establishment?
we didn't live there when we moved over.
Oh.
Yeah,
that's
when we
true.
opened,
Oh,
we
I
were,
didn't know that.
yep. And I remember driving by the development and saying, I don't know, this feels like it's no.
It was a bit of a up and coming place still.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, all of the
It is,
units weren't
yes.
filled. Like it was not.
Yeah.
It wasn't. In fact, right? We were kind of like,
Mhm.
I don't know about that zone." 7 years later, I couldn't have predicted or understood how much of a small town area that whole zone is. It's very fascinating.
I mean, you have to be careful in the parking lot because there's so many people there all the time.
Well,
I have been in an accident in that parking lot
well,
long ago. But I mean, it's busy, is what I'm saying.
it's
Yeah.
busy.
Yeah,
Yeah. And,
it is.
so to answer your question, the commercial real estate agent,
Oh, they had that information.
they
Okay.
knew that this coffee, you know,
Very helpful
big coffee
information.
brand was moving in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they were able to share that. And during the lease negotiations, we asked for exclusivity in some of our services. So in our whole complex, there will not be, duplicate.
Curious.
Yeah. And so, but the landlord also had a
I didn't
nice,
know you could ask for that.
yeah, you can.
Wow.
So and that's like giving
Dang, that's
security to the business owner.
that's competition, yo. Like, wow, I'm super excited to hear that. That's wow.
nobody can step on our toes.
Very
Maybe
cool.
in the new development going behind us, somebody could go in for sure.
Yes,
Right.
and that's okay. We are there
Yeah, yeah,
first and established, and certainly if in the new development when it's ready in a couple of years, if a chiropractor opens up a clinic there, that's great. Actually, it's some might see it as competition, um, but we're established.
yeah,
We're growing, and we will be full.
yeah,
We're not full yet, but we will be full. And it's okay to have other practitioners, physiotherapists, massage therapists in the neighborhood and even close by. That's going to be totally fine.
yeah.
Um, but um, to find out the information on it's a development hub that was online at the District of North Vancouver. You can see their OCP, their official community plans. I think that's what it stands for. And so you can see the ceiling, you can see exactly their different areas, and that's like a 10-year, 15-year plan.
Right.
So all of that's available for somebody if they're looking at a space to open. Okay, well, what does it look like now? What does the future hold? Um, will there be growth here? Et
Yep.
cetera. So uh, that's kind of help pick location. And conversely, people will also choose to be sometimes in a business tower or a
Right.
business park
Right.
where they might not have the walk by traffic. And they'll have a less expensive lease, so they'll spend more money on marketing.
Mhm.
We chose a ground floor, high exposure, high foot traffic, and it's an expensive lease.
Right.
We could have, and we chose a large size to start with. You can start small and then grow larger. You can always move if you've outgrown your space, depending on what your goals are.
Right.
Mhm.
So we chose a large space that had a lot of overhead to get started with. And that, was a short
Right.
term pain, but we know in long term that we are seeing that now that we're able to, there's less stress, and we're not going to move. We don't need to expand. We're growing into our large
Mhm.
space.
Right.
And so there's different ways to go about it. And there's plenty of integrated health clinics or even solo practitioners um, in a business tower, low overhead, lots of good advertising, and maybe in a downtown core where there's thousands of people around,
Right.
with the right advertising and marketing, they will be successful in their model too. But this is just what we chose.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah. So in this whole journey,
Yeah.
what are your biggest lessons? And if you have something that you could share that didn't work that you wish you knew in advance?
I'm not sure about didn't work, and I've maybe touched on it a couple of times, but I think the biggest lesson is for me, um, how to settle into the plan. I felt like, and I kind of, I think I find it funny because when we made this decision, I said this earlier. It's like, oh, we're going to open a business. We're going to be business owners. Okay, here we go. It's a very long road, and I think somebody said, 5 years. Think about 5 years. Well, when you're opening something, 5 years seems so far away. And I kept repeating that to myself, like, just be patient, be patient. And I guess that maybe is the biggest thing I learned is, even though I'm as old as I am, I still need the reminder to be patient because it takes time. And, like getting the right staff on board, getting the right practitioners, um, recognizing that we're a brand new company in a space that doesn't know us. So just being patient that it will happen. If you really believe in what you're doing and have a passionate person that you're working with on
Mhm.
board like that, we just had to stay on that patient path and continue on. But that doesn't answer any of the challenges. I think my personal challenge was having expectations that it was just going to open the door and we go. No,
Mhm.
Right.
Well, and I think that's something to consider for a new business owner, a new clinic owner, um, would be is if you purchase an existing business clinic, then you have practitioners and
Right.
staff and revenue already happening. Depending on the cost, differences of starting something from nothing, there could be pros and cons to that.
Right.
So I think, um, what worked was, staying positive, following the plan, and creating that atmosphere and culture, um, that's positive and, surrounding yourself with really, really good people.
Yeah.
Can you think of any specific, oh, I wouldn't do that again moment? I mean, I know we had them. We were just blocking them out.
Probably. Probably. I mean, there's enough there. I don't, honestly, I don't think we can say we had any like, oops, that was a huge mistake.
Yeah.
We didn't really have any of those.
Mhm.
And, perhaps we just got lucky, or perhaps we, just drew from our experience and had our vision and our plan.
Yeah.
So I think we've spent money on some marketing where it's like questionable of the return. Maybe that could be a waste of money. Maybe that's a mistake,
Mhm.
but it's also sometimes hard to figure that out, whether that's tangible.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I can't think of any major, major problems.
Mhm.
I think it's interesting you bring up marketing because our CEO and co-founder, Ali, she ran clinics for 20 years and owned them. And she is very particular about marketing. So our entire marketing department at Jane is structured in a very specific way because of her preferences around marketing. And it's because of what you're saying that sometimes some of the most typical assumed that you'll do them types of marketing don't work. And it goes back to what you were saying about the location. What's going on there? Are you relying on foot traffic or are you in a tower? Those sorts of things matter. Did you buy the business from someone else and there's already a client base? The marketing you're going to do is going to look different than if you're starting from scratch in an up and coming area versus starting from scratch in a downtown hub. So all of those things matter in terms of how you choose marketing, but I don't think that conversation is, well, I don't know where people are going to have that conversation, but we're trying to have it here.
Yeah.
So I love that you brought that up. And in this podcast, different people we've been interviewing, they'll say different things, different types of marketing work for them. One person said SEO was critical. Another person said SEO didn't work for me at all. It just was a waste of money. But if I wrote content helping solve people's problems or giving them tips on how to like think about the, you know, helping themselves or whatever, that worked. It brought people in. So it's, and then you mentioning foot traffic, which is another one I haven't heard yet, as we get started here. So it's an interesting topic
Yeah,
for sure.
it didn't. And I think there's, in, on the North Shore, there's certainly very busy areas where there's a lot of clinics, and it's, kind of there, and a lot of other businesses. It's a, very commercially um, busy spots, but that pose some problems for people in our community. Access
Yeah,
and, driving there, and then sometimes traffic.
totally.
Um, and
Parking.
whether it's
Parking is a huge problem.
yeah,
It
parking,
can be a
public,
mental hurdle. I don't want to go to that place because I have to figure out how to park.
yeah,
Right.
and so we had a lot of people early on say, "Thank you
Yeah.
for being here, so I don't
Yeah.
have to go there."
Yeah.
And so that just,
Yeah.
then when you
Interesting.
provide excellent care and friendly service, then it's just you're part of that community, and the
Yeah.
referrals and the networking, so and so telling their neighbor, and like,
Yeah.
so that's, was part of going to an underserved area. Um, and it was interesting comments, you know, when we were first getting started.
Yeah. And just a little side note on that. It's something that me have really struggled with through this entire process has been just our online presence and our social media component of things. Just I think being of this time frame, it felt like there needed to be a lot of effort and energy put into that. And we've had ups and downs with it for sure. We're kind of in a down at the moment. And it's, as Eric said a minute ago, it's hard to really quantify it,
Yeah.
especially because we are a single place in a very specific community. So perhaps one thing that we'll want to do in the future is put more energy into that for more of our community involvement as far as just other businesses and getting to know people more. But I don't know, and we'll never know because we can't go back in time. But I can't imagine how having a better Instagram page and a better any social media for us specifically would have grown our business that much more.
I mean, we have a very nice Instagram
What's your handle?
at Vitae North Van.
Is it? Yes, it is.
But nevertheless, I think that people, if they're maybe hear about you or find you on a search engine, different ways, and if they want to say, well, what does it look like? Well, that's represented. Our brand and our feel, our practitioners, some introductions, it's all there. So it's there, it's still there. We haven't updated and, we're in that, we haven't been spending a lot of energy and updating our Instagram recently. But it's all still there. And unless you, look very closely at the dates, it still gives you that feel of who we are and what they might expect.
Right.
So whether there's a post from last week or a post from last month, the feel is still there.
Right. And I think having a really simple website where people can get the basic information, they can contact you and they can figure out who is working at your clinic and what we offer.
Right.
And having that updated and current,
I think
that's important.
Yeah. And
Very
sorry,
cool.
side note.
Love it. So when you started out, you said you had a 6 to 8 year goal. Where are you in that process and what's coming next for Vitae?
Well, yeah, we had that business plan, and that was written in 2018. So the business plan, I mean, once 2020 hit, the business plan really just went in reverse. So, we're now 4 years into the business plan and we're well on our way.
Yeah.
And so we still have some growth ahead planned. We'll be adding practitioners. So kind of on that, just like business side of things, we achieved what we wanted to achieve and we're continuing to grow. But we've had with that business plan, which, we look at every once in a while, dust it off, and we've learned to be very fluid and to make changes to that plan. So evaluate what's working, what's not, and what's exciting, what can we look forward to. So
like accepting change that didn't happen and celebrating what did. Certainly things happen that we wouldn't have anticipated and we're really happy with. So
Yeah.
What do you think is our next goal?
Floating around is the talk of a second location, but that's really floating around. There's no pen on paper on that one.
Thank you for that final qualifier.
Floating around. But, I think we're also, once we are full and completely established with a well-oiled machine and having a fun place to work, that could check all of our boxes and that might be it.
Right.
So just, a little bit more growth.
Yeah.
And we can be very happy with where we are and excited to go to work each day.
Love it. Well, thank you both for being here. You have given us so many unique things to think about and tips and tricks for people, for our listeners. So I appreciate your time so much. And
Well, thank you for having us. What
Yeah.
fun.
yeah,
Well, we appreciate it. And, Jane's been a big part of our business as well. And so we appreciate being here and helping the listeners and viewers with some ideas.
yeah, awesome. Thank you. Okay, that's a wrap.